Footy and Frothies, Daggy and Barney back with you like old times at the Grey Gums Hotel. How are you?
First time in a long time.
It's been a while since we've done. I just realised this. I'm going to get emotional now. I'll even tell you to get your mic up a little bit higher.
Going all good, mate. And yourself?
Yeah, going good. Working and shit. It's no good for you, but it's all right.
No good. Crushes your soul.
Yeah. It's been so far so good. So, yeah, ticking over, going well. Family's happy. Mrs. is tolerating me. So there's all that sort of good stuff going on. But we have got rugby league to talk about. We're going to try a little bit of a different format, not as in-depth as we've been over the past few years, just so we can keep it a little bit lighter and easier for everyone to get through. Whether or not we do this and then the preview separately, I guess we'll make a judgment call some way through the line. But welcome aboard if it's your first time. Daggy and Barney, as we said, are here to take you through all the happenings and news from the last week, as we've done for the last 5+ years. What caught your eye, mate? What's been happening?
There's some really good games of footy, and then there was some very average games in this shortened round. Obviously, only the 6 games this weekend, which, probably a little bit easier to digest the 6 games rather than trying to squeeze all 8 in over the weekend. But there's a couple of standout young fellas come through. They look like ready-made first graders, which we'll get to, obviously, when we talk about some different games. But some exciting times for some teams, and some teams would be absolutely freaking out.
This is, and it probably happens every year, but this feels to me the first time where I've gone, there's generally 4 or 5 teams that are just not prepared for round one contact. Didn't want any part of being into the grind, didn't want any part of actually just, putting their shoulder into people and tackling. Cowboys, Parramatta, to name a couple, were just like, it's like they were shocked all of a sudden it was footy season in some ways. Did they have that feel to you?
You could add the Roosters to that list.
Troops.
Yeah, 100% it did. There's a few guys there that really looked completely out of their depth. Some of these younger fellas that you saw in this Roosters pack, and a couple of other games over the weekend. The Cowboys just weren't nowhere near ready for the speed that Manly threw at them to begin that game, and neither were the Roosters with Brisbane. So.
No. Neither were Parramatta with Melbourne.
No.
But I guess the first thing to touch on, usually we touch on news here, but we'll try and stick to some key points. Dylan Brown's the news of the week, 14 million over 10 years. It's done and dusted and happening. Thoughts? We've seen not many positive comments, to be fair, many Newcastle groups have kicked me out of all of them. So the immediate reaction's not been positive from the media. Overrated, overhyped, blah, blah, blah. Credit to Dylan and credit to his manager for getting the deal. What's your thoughts on that, though?
It just shows you how important halves are these days, isn't it? Like, how many top-line halves have you got running around in the comp? Probably 10, maybe, 10. If you're lucky.
And then an extension to that is of that 10...
Some teams have got 2.
3 or 4... well, plus 3 or 4 probably retiring in the next 18, 24 months.
Correct.
Yeah, once you take DCE and Reynolds off the table, for example, and Ben Hunt,
yep,
the pool gets even shallower.
Obviously, there'll be kids coming through, but it's a very desperate play from Newcastle to come out here. I think it's probably more about making sure that Ponga stays than anything else.
Yeah.
You can turn around and say, look, we've thrown the money, we've got your half. What else do you need to try and get a premiership in the next couple of years? And keep him at the joint for a little while longer, but...
What's he on? 5? He's still got 5 years or something. 4 or 5 years left.
I believe he's got another
7?
3.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Someone shout out for him to do my research, but
100%.
I just saw that. It doesn't seem particularly good salary management to have $2.8 million tied up in... Literally, they now own the 2 most expensive year-on-year players in the game, in Ponga and Brown. I just don't know, because even before the Tigers game, I watched that whole pre-game, and O'Brien didn't want to commit to that, sort of was bemoaning the fact that Hastings was injured, Cogger was in hospital, was Crook, I think.
Right.
Cogger. No, Gamble, sorry. Cogger played. And leading up to it, and even after the game, he was non-committal at the press conference about their future. I just think he doesn't know where... I don't think he knows who to trust as a half, and he thinks this is going to solve Bealey's be and end up. I haven't seen any mail saying he's going to necessarily go to play 7, though. Or is that the deal?
I don't think there's any other option, really.
Well, he'll end up there.
Well, from the looks of it, like Sharp, we're only 1 game into obviously he's played a bit of fullback and wing, and we know how much acceleration and pace he does have. But we've only one game into his halves career, but he apparently grew up playing in the halves. But he looked good enough. If you can get a game manager on the inside of him.
Which they aren't.
I'm not sure.
Unless
Brown
Kalen
is,
Kalen was the game manager on Friday night.
Yes.
I don't think Brown is.
It has been for the last couple of years. It's always where he wants the ball and how he wants the shape of the team to set up.
And I hate to say it, it doesn't particularly seem that AOB is the man to teach someone how to be a game manager at 7.
Definitely.
Because he's now got, 5? He's been at Newcastle for 4 or 5 years. And he can't find a halfback.
Mm-hmm.
So the proof's in the pudding there. How many times do we rave about whoever replaces Nathan Cleary?
Well, the most important part of a 7, I believe, in my opinion, is a kicking game, realistically.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen Dylan Brown put plenty out on the full or duff them and kick them short and drag them across the field and not have the accuracy in that kicking game. And I'm not sure there's many others in that side that have it either. So,
100%. I don't know who they find to then partner him, because I would look, if you had the money and luxury to get him as a top line 5'8", knowing you're going to have Mitch Moses next year for 10 years,
yes.
but an Adam Reynolds or someone like that next year, yes, I can understand to an extent. I just think it reeks of desperation here more than anything else.
I was surprised it took him so long to sign the paper, actually, considering the offer came out a couple of weeks ago.
I reckon after that Parramatta game, the fact that it literally happened the next day, it was like, if I don't get pen to paper here, some of these zeros are going to disappear very quickly.
And I'm not sure any other team out there wanted to pay him any more than about 900,000. So it's
and I think Parra were even willing to go to $1 million.
Yep.
So you just say, okay, you understand it from the player's point of view. The question is, well, in 10 years' time, does he last 10 years?
Not as a 7, I don't think so. No.
No.
Fantastic running game, questionable kicking, and his pass selection is generally pretty good. Probably one of the better defensive halves in the game, which is something that's obviously a massive tick. But I'm not sure he stays at 7 for the 10 years that he signed.
No. It's now a very, very big albatross to have to unload, though.
And you've seen it with Manly. It came back to bite Manly over the last few years. We have having heaps of money tied up in 2 and 3 players, like with the Trebojeviches and DCE there. Which
you've already seen in Newcastle. Leo Thompson's on the way out. I'm sure Dylan Lucas' next contract's going to be substantially more. Their depth is quite thin when you really.
And Manly have sort of worked it out now, but they've had to rotate their entire pack basically, and they're relying on a lot of young fellas coming through. That they've obviously managed to get a good crop of young guys all come through at the same time. That doesn't last more than a couple of years, though.
That's right.
Because people's contracts need to be upgraded. Obviously, there'll be some DCE money floating around and maybe a bit of Jake's money in a couple of years, but
I feel like if you're Manly, you just sit there and go, well, we'll be right when DCE goes because we'll just have 1.5 to spend. But whatever it might be at the time with inflation.
Mm-hmm.
Why is there no halfbacks? Why is no club capable of bringing them along? Is there no development into that?
I think it's got a lot to do with the coaching coming through.
Yeah.
I think they're basically told not to play football. Do your jobs, hit your back rowers running their lines, and that's you don't see many halves not have a nice little short ball to someone running on their shoulder or on the inside of their hips. But when it starts coming to decisions about cut out passing and different types of kicks in and around your chip kicks or your early kick for the line for 40-20s and that kind of stuff, it seems to be coached out of a lot of the young fellas.
Yeah, a fear of failure from
making mistakes
from early on if you've got the balls to try that. Sam Walker, for example, was a bit on the skits there for 12 months because he was doing that stuff, and Rover didn't necessarily like it.
Yeah.
And until they realised, hey, we've probably got something.
We've got to have to do it.
Yeah. Then I guess the next question quickly is, what do Parramatta do? How quickly does actually was talking to this at work today. Actually, how quickly does the reshuffle happen? We've just seen Brayley sign with Canberra as well. The other news.
Yep.
I can see a world where suddenly that happens very quickly. Suddenly Brayley's out the door as quick as it can be. Suddenly, hey Dylan, we've got 850 here this year. If you can come on up, and then the merry-go-round starts very, very
I don't think
quickly.
Parramatta let him go this year.
I don't think they do either, but I think they're
maybe
niggling.
right at the back end of the year, but
Yeah.
I can't see it happening.
Or until he starts sandbagging and I'm not suggesting he will. No man's suggesting that'll happen, but I can see a world where the drums start, the cycle starts early.
Well, no, Moses for 6 to 8 weeks. I think that pretty much
100%.
puts a pen through letting him go before round 10 or origin sort of areas. And I wouldn't imagine, I don't think they let him go at all, to be honest.
It did amuse me that the same people slamming the deal because this bloke's not proven then said they should offer $1 million to Lockie Galvin, who, last I checked, was a 19-year-old that ran last year. So I don't understand it. The very same mouths that say... and play like shit on the weekend, by the way. The very same mouths saying slamming it on one hand want to then push the agenda on the other hand. I don't understand it. But
Brown's always been in and around, up in that sort of top areas of halves, but he's never really taken a game by the scruff of the neck on his own.
At least he's played a grand final, got a team to a grand final. He's the national 5'8", I suppose.
I wouldn't be signing him for that kind of money. I'd be trying to keep him. If I wanted him in my team, it'd be around the $800,000-900,000 mark. But the deal's done, and it is what it is. So move on, and I hope he takes control of that team and gets them around gets them to do what they need to do, because Newcastle, it's always a pretty fun atmosphere when Newcastle's up and going pretty well. So.
Definitely is. They're not a boring side by any means. Yeah. Anything else over the weekend news-wise catch your eye? I can't think of a great deal. There wasn't too many dramas. Tarpanay copped 2 weeks.
Poor Munro broke his collarbone again.
Poor Munro. I think it's his third. Yeah, he's having surgery. So thoughts with him. That sucks. But apart from that, no suspensions out of the most recent round and not many other injuries. A few HIAs.
Oh, yeah, poor old Radley got knocked out again.
Radley knocked out. And he's out this concerning. Week. Well, actually, my first thought when that happened was retirement starting to... Especially the club, where they've been very proactive about that sort of thing. Really, really fingers crossed that the best comes through for Victor. Yeah, anything else you want to touch on? No?
Not particularly.
Get into this. Let's get into Friday night, which was Thursday night, in fact. 50-14, the Chooks went down to Brisbane, who were very, very impressive. Barn, what are you doing? Any stats? Or are you just going to throw some shit out?
Run through the summary. So we had 3 tries to 9. Dom Young with a double for the Roosters, and Sandon Smith with a try. Sandon Smith with 1 out of 3 conversions. Shibasaki with a try for the Broncos. Corey Pakes, Jack Gueski, Cobbo got a hat trick. Ben Hunt with a try, Walsh with a try, and Arthurs with a try. So plenty of try scorers in that one. 6 out of 9 conversions for Adam Reynolds. 1 out of 1 penalty attempts for Adam Reynolds. There was a sin bin for Piakora.
He finished on -11. What did he play, 38 seconds or something?
Something ridiculous like that. And this is about the second or third time he's done that. He turned up in a game and been sent off in a couple of minutes. But, half-time it was 20-4. So... Mate, this was an absolute walkover. There was 20 minutes. It was tough in the middle. There was a bit going on. The Roosters managed to score the first try, and I was sort of thinking, okay, maybe this isn't going to be as dire as I was expecting it to be after. I thought they were probably just going to get run over from the very start, and they did put up a bit of there's a bit in their defence for 20 minutes, but then it all went out. And a try
and a breakaway, and Dom Young got close.
Horrible read from Shibasaki, and then Hunt just left. It was never going to get anywhere near him and didn't even try. but once that head knock came, it just seemed to take all the energy out of the Roosters.
What do you... we can't send... We might as well start with the Roosters, because what do we say? Like, their halves looked average.
Yes. Smith got better as the game went on, but Chad was really just in the background, kicking the ball occasionally when it got past to him. He had a couple of shockers as well.
The rest of their forward pack, I'm just trying to give us anyone who could even rap. Look, Crichton tried hard, but was penalised most times he did.
They didn't use him properly either. He was always on the back of that sort of sweep play and running at an angle out towards the centres, and they were just herding him towards the sideline, which takes away a lot of his effectiveness.
The best of him is time and space cutting through and just being able to put a bit of footwork on and a palm and
he did it once or twice, but
there was a video up today of Dom Young's defensive reads or lack of effort, but when you get you down by 30. What are you going to do?
Never been one with a great read in defence either.
Exactly. And Teddy tried his ass off. He's now with Moses missing 8 weeks, $1.01 to be the most complaining player in NRL for the rest of the season. Because my God, absolutely, but fuck, he whinged. He's not going to have a fun season.
Lindsay Collins, for mine, got bashed out of it a little bit. I know he got split open early, which doesn't help, and spent some time getting patched up. But he did. His effectiveness was really shut down. They made a big point of rushing him before he could sort of get the speed into his legs and hitting him early. So his metres were drastically reduced. Nafahu White did okay. He hasn't had a lot of first-grade experience, but he wasn't too bad. Look, Connor Watson worked his ass off. Wasn't really overly effective in breaking the game open or anything like that, but did plenty of work in defence and basically took over in the 7 role once they brought the substitute hooker on.
Noah Takanese and Toa were the only shining lights.
Oh, the centres were fantastic.
Marky Mark is bigger body than I actually sort of thought. He
got some
did
pace
a pretty good job. Yeah, did a pretty good job on both sides of the ball. Toya spoke for himself in attack. Looks
got
a likely
some nice
type.
Light footwork, doesn't he?
Yeah, very end a bit of side, and he's being only young. He'll grow into that as well. So they're the 2 big ticks. The rest you just go. I have grave concerns, which I'd had going in the game. That said, we can get on to Brisbane.
Yeah, didn't really use anyone back through the middle with a change of angles or anything like that.
Who's there to be used?
Teddy
that was
and Crichton.
Yeah, but that was a Satilli job. Back over the last couple of years when he was in the side, it was a little bit. Well, it's more the Crichton job.
Radley maybe, but he was off the field.
So they were very, very plodding once.
Dominated, and their defence completely fell apart. So that's a massive worry.
What about Brisbane?
How fit do they look? Like, I know there's been all the talk in the preseason, but none of them looked like they were blowing until about 20 minutes left in the game. But then some of them played some long stints. Yeah. Carrigan's an absolute fucking freak.
Incredible. Well, both of them are.
Well,
both
they
those
wound
front
us
rowers.
up and said, you got half, mate. They did the half an hour and then 20-minute rest plus half time and then finish it off in the last 25. And he just tore the game to pieces. Just about every time he touched the ball. And he looks lighter on his feet. He looks faster. And the way he was engaging tacklers and just brushing them aside and bumping blokes off, throwing offloads was ridiculous. And in all that gap time where we used to see the drop-off because they'd take both of them off, they'd work them both for 50 to 60 minutes, take Carrigan and Haas off, and then Brisbane had dropped right off for 20 minutes. Didn't happen because Carrigan wound Carrigan up, just said, you're just playing minutes. And he did. Kept
and
that middle together.
He did it incredibly too. Like, just very, very good. Just 2 phenomenal players, but Haas was probably the best front row performance we've seen this season. Yep. Unless we're going to talk about the one in the next game, which we'll get to as well. But his footwork, and then just when he came back on, he was fresh enough. He was light on his feet. Like I said, there was times he was offloading. There was times he was running. There was times he was just running across and putting an inside ball to someone else. It was a mind-blowing effort,
especially a bloke as well.
There was fitness concerns along the way as well. Yeah, and throwing it on top of that, his injury concerns coming this season. Hunt and Reynolds combined well.
Fantastic, yeah.
You just don't change. I wouldn't change him.
No, you don't. I wouldn't think it'll happen.
Unless there's an injury, you just say, sorry, Ezra, you reap what you sow there, and you can watch 2 quality players play half.
Yeah. Hunt played all the short sides pretty much. It was his job to, probably got that fraction more acceleration so he can get running and going down a short side and work the short sides over. Reynolds took control for the majority of it, especially with the kicking. But Hunt played a fantastic second foil to him. They both had fantastic games. So.
Pake's very serviceable. He was fine. Clever, and Reece Walsh. The strike they got out back is just... Walsh can now take a bit. Walsh still did quite a bit of kicking throughout the game.
He did.
All things being considered, but he can just pick his moments to chime in. That field didn't suit him, by the way. That field was completely fucked. I don't know how. I think they got and I was looking at the Randwick track rating the next day, and Randwick, which is obviously not far from Allianz, was like 1.4 mil.
And not a great drainage track as it is.
No, but they've got 2 mil. How did that pitch fall apart with 2 mil of rain?
Drainage is fucked, obviously.
But 2 minutes in that game, you thought Reece Walsh is gone here because you've seen it when he gets on those slippery surfaces. He doesn't like it.
I don't know if they returfed big chunks of it or what they've done.
I have no idea.
But,
I have no idea it's going to hold up.
You think back to last year with that game when it pissed down just before kickoff and the thing was underwater.
Yeah.
So,
but
obviously
that shut him
drainage issues there.
down. He's ready to go. Selwyn Cobbo, well, you mentioned fitness, genuinely looks fit.
100%.
And he's a forgotten factor, I think, in that team. Because
well, they didn't really go to him for the first half.
No.
He did all his work in the second half.
And then just remembered he was there and bulldozed. Look, we were, I don't say we're critical of him in our season preview, but with what the strike they've got, and if they are as fit and have as goes to show probably the pre-season work that Kevy Walters put in, which is probably sitting at the Caxton and talking shit compared to what Madge has driven into them. They're now very, very scary, I would suggest, coming out of this.
Yeah, 100%. I want to see them get challenged, especially in their centres, in the when some attack thrown at them out wide, and see how the likes of Mariner and Shibasaki line up.
There's enough cracks where I'm not going to declaring stupid yet, but yes. And even the back row, Gazowski's, we've seen enough of him. Ricky
Willison,
Ketherington and co. They're not A+, but in that team, fitness-wise, they can be.
Yeah. So. No, absolutely. I think they'll match it with the majority of teams. So I just really want to see someone throw some real good attack at them and see how the defense
we're going to see a bit of that
lines up
soon. 3 points, Payne Haas. 2 points, Carrigan.
I gave Reynolds the 2. I just thought his kicking game was really good about how he got him around. That. And then, Carrigan with the 1.
Let's go with that. Friday kicked off with the Knights and Tigers. We saw the New Look Tigers roll out 10-8 in what no one would describe as a classic game. Came up next. Run through some quick stats, if you like.
Yeah, 1 try to 2. Skelton with the first try for the Tigers. Dewey with 1 out of 1 conversion attempts and 1 out of 1 penalty attempts. Fletcher Sharp scored for Newcastle, as did Greg Marzu. Ponga kicked 1 out of 2 conversion attempts.
That was the game, really, wasn't it?
That was it. Tigers looked really good for the first 10 minutes. They looked up and about, and the excitement levels and energy levels were through the roof for the first 10, 15 minutes. And then I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was going through the bench rotation of the forwards, but all the energy just seemed to get sucked out of them there for a big period of this game. And back end of the game, they looked like they probably weren't quite as fit as Newcastle. So
no.
To mine, that's probably realistically the only reason that it went Newcastle's way. But
I think
Newcastle did look better in attack. They created more opportunities.
My concern going in the game was how was our centres and versus Best and Gagai, and that proved to be really Best could have probably scored 3 tries himself if he kept the ball, or at least have 3 try assists. And if you put that on top, I'd agree. This is such a weird game to line up, because maybe they're the 7th and 8th team, and that bottom half is what we saw. It's too early to say that. But I thought Newcastle played poorly. They fucked up a lot. They threw some dumb passes a lot. They need some. Even if they had a decent half, a quality half in that team, if they had Dylan Brown, they probably win by 10. In fairness, but ultimately, I think everyone's going to be better for the run. I was trying a way to frame this. Tigers would have taken enough out where they can be happy with it, whether it's fitness, whether it's combinations. Yeah, and ultimately, there was still a 19-year-old spine. I may as well go straight to it. I thought Luai, I won't say was poor, because some of his defensive efforts were fantastic, both covering Dewey in defence and saving a couple of tries with some big efforts as well. But there was times where he should have taken control as a 7, and Galvin Fannis with the ball, who had a poor game, probably his worst game in first grade. I thought he kicked terribly. He kept going to that left foot, the left corner grubber, which never worked.
It went into legs just about every time he did.
Exactly right. And Ponga was primed and ready for it, who we'll come back to. I think they were better for the run. I think they were better for having Appy there. And like say, I think their starting forward pack did enough where, in terms of physicality, they'll match up with most teams this year. And we need to say Terrell May was incredible. I thought he was the second best front row performance this weekend. For him to play 65 minutes and do the work he did and kept coming. He might be sizing. If they make the finals, it'll be on the back of him more than it'll be on the back of anyone else.
You would think so.
Skelton was very good. He was outstanding, actually. Taruva, I think his stats reflected better than his game impact. Apart from that, anything else for the Tigers?
You've hit on most of the points. I felt a bit sorry for poor old Heath Mason at the back there.
Yeah.
Didn't they line him up every time they put a bomb up? It was either Best or Frizzell or someone was hitting him the second he take the thing, and he kept bouncing up, to his credit.
Yeah.
He had a tough game. He played tough and hung on as long as he could. But
Actually, for a 19-year-old spine, Tallender Silva had a very, very good game and can be effective as Appy's shadow, I think, in games.
Yep.
Like coming on and he'll probably play 9 and Appy will float out into a small forward role, and that could be interesting as we go on.
I was a bit disappointed nobody really went with Terrell May, to be honest. I thought he was fantastic, and the amount of work that he got through.
They never used those out. Like, everyone was sort of keen on those back rowers. They didn't get into the game. Fainer never got the ball. Seyfarth, it's sort of the same. Like, Twal got through his usual Twal.
Seyfarth sort of, to my mind, seemed to be crabbing across field looking for an offload more than anything, which took away a lot of impact running the ball. May probably lost a little bit of impact just for the amount of minutes that he had to play. When you saw his role at the Roosters, he was very impactful running the ball, which he did plenty. He made plenty of metres and took plenty of runs, but he probably didn't split them open like he has done in previous seasons. Whether they can find someone else to take up a few more minutes in that rotation, keep him a little bit fresher, but interesting.
Whether Pole's better off the bench doing that for him for 20 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's possible.
Pole didn't have a bad game, but definitely faded.
Yeah. And I think that was a big part of why Newcastle were able to finish off the game a fair bit stronger than the Tigers, to be honest. I'm with you on Luai. I thought he sort of faded out of the game a bit, which was a bit disappointing. Just sort of took a back seat for a big part of that second half. There was a few very flat performances on both sides of the field in this one.
Newcastle, what do you make of them? I thought Kalen Ponga was incredible. Like, they do not win the game and probably don't score a point without Kalen from the positions they have to work from and get through. If not so much don't score a point, he saved 3 tries. I was going to say,
they would have conceded a couple of tries without him there. The way he was directing the defence around, and I don't think he was out of position for a kick all night.
Yeah,
which is a big part of fullback play that never gets really mentioned that much when you hear about the people commenting on the game. I thought their forward pack. I know I mentioned that the Tigers' forward pack was a bit lacklustre, but they were probably as good as Newcastle's, if not maybe a touch better for parts of the game.
If you take Dylan Lucas out of that forward pack, how would you line him up?
No, Tigers probably win it pretty comfortably with Dylan Lucas there. Thompson had a pretty fair game, to be fair.
But that's it. Like, really? I can't think of another one to talk about.
Crossland did a whole heap of defence, and that's probably... it's weird to say that, Brayley used to be one of the better defensive hookers going around, but that's probably what's going to keep him in the team in front of Brayley at the moment, because I know he's had a few years of injury, but he also hasn't been brilliant in defence when he has been out there either. No. So, and his attacking game's nothing like it was before all the injuries either. So tough times for Brayley, to be honest. Not a huge amount to mention. You mentioned their centres who were probing all night, but they made some errors as well, which really sort of shot themselves in the foot at different stages of the game. Pretty ugly game, and Ponga's the reason that they won at the back end, really.
I think that's all we really finish on. Sheila was fine, actually, just looking through. Yeah. Big, nice, big, strong winger that they can use, so fair enough. And
Sharp had moments.
And end of the day, if Marzu's foot touches a sideline there an inch the other way, Tigers win, and the whole narrative is completely different. I want to see both these teams again. Yeah. 3 points Ponga, 2 points May. You can pick the other one. Lucas, yeah. Sounds good to me. You can take me through this game a bit more, because I had a bit on at the time. 16-14 at Rabbitohs over Dolphins. What I did see didn't seem like an instant classic either.
Definitely wasn't. Both sides did have their struggles in attack. But it was 3 tries apiece. Munro with the double, Tass with the try to seal the game. Humphries with 2 out of 3 conversions. And somebody missed a penalty goal. They don't have it down here, obviously, because they didn't kick it. But I dare say it would have been Humphries from memory. Asako scored a double and Max Plath scored a nice try for the Dolphins.
Good player.
Asako 1 from 3 from conversions. It was 12-4 at half time, and the Dolphins couldn't get out of their way to start this game. Souths did start pretty well in attack, getting into good positions, and the Dolphins never seemed to have the ball, and when they did, they turned it over pretty much for a good start. Good part of this game. The forward packs matched up pretty well. I thought, Arrow had a massive game. Arrow was fantastic for the Roosters. Got through shit ton of work in there. Mamazelos tackled his backside off. Gilbert wasn't at his highest form, but he was doing plenty of work. He was bumping a few tackles and created a few offloads there for the Dolphins. Herbie tried really hard, but they just did not put him in a good position.
Both those centres.
Yeah, they didn't get him in the right position at all. Saifidi did a good job for the time that he was out there. 52 minutes, probably played a little bit long. He was blowing pretty hard by the time they took him off, but they did need him while he was out there. Plath's a gun. For a guy who's, his stature's not... He's not the biggest forward going around, but he hits like a truck in defence. He's folded some blokes in half, and he just never gives up. Just continually unrelenting, getting through. They lost this game in their halves. Katoa was solid enough, but they just could not position their play at all. They could not get guys into even half holes for them to create anything. Their only play really seemed to be creating that extra number and having Asako score in the corner.
Well, it goes to show that depth because both these halves are out of the Penrith system and they're not. Well, Katoa is fine and very good organising half, but he needed he needs a Nicarima around him, and O'Sullivan's not that. Yeah, you'd almost, as the season goes on, suspect that they're better off throwing Avarillo back to 6 or something.
Souths worked really hard.
Young Hubner, what do you make of him? Likely type.
Fantastic in defence.
Yeah.
Probably needs a bit of work on his attacking game. He's not the biggest guy in the world, so he sort of got thrown around a little bit when he was running the ball up, but did a mountain of work in defence, which is obviously going to be needed now with Murray not being in that middle for this year. Combined pretty well with his half. Defended quite well. I can't remember exactly who he was defending outside of, but it was on the right-hand side of the field. I think it would have been Humphries, but they seem to defend pretty well as a pairing. Never reached any heights this game. Kulamatangi was really good, especially with the ball in hand. He created quite a few opportunities, half busting through the line and getting quick play the balls to set up Mamazoulos to get out and get the ball out there. I heard
Jai Gray and Humphries?
Jai Gray I've heard him called the Energizer Bunny before, and that's exactly what that guy is. He's made of rubber. He just bounces off people all over the place. He's not frightened at all, just runs headlong straight at front rowers and whatever when he's bringing the ball back. He was tremendous. The amount of effort, if they could get Latrell to put in half the effort that this kid does, he'd be the best player in the game by a mile. He just effort upon effort, that young fella. He was amazing to see. Whiten ironed out a couple of people in defence. He put some real good hits on a couple of times when they went down the right side in attack for the Dolphins. He's a massive plus for them out there. Campbell Graham didn't have the best night in attack, but again, defensively on that edge. Last year, they probably got picked apart 2 or 3 times there in that position in this game. And
absolutely.
They couldn't, because Hammer came sniffing and Herbie was sniffing, but, they had Campbell Graham there who just kept shutting things down. So.
What do we take from it? Is this just ultimately you walk away from this going, this is probably a bottom 4 game for now? Or you're going to see them both again?
Maybe just at the top of the bottom 4, maybe at the bottom of that big clump of teams. But
not everyone can run last either.
I've got a funny feeling that between 8th and 16th is going to be fucking
Oh,
a whole heap of teams
yeah.
that are just going to be the same sort of
Well, this
sort
thing,
of team.
it was exciting on paper, but also you think, are we just going to get 4 bludger games a week where it's going to look like this Friday
Some
night?
of these teams that got blown away are going to play a lot better than they did.
I think so.
This round.
And some are going to click like, well, plus there'll be games Newcastle click and look incredible. There'll be games Luai clicks and
If the Dolphins get on a
Tigers for
roll and
points
start pulling people apart.
Yeah, Nicarima plays and digs in the line. All of a sudden, Hammer pops up with 2 or 3 tries. There's still enough where you go, okay, it's round 1. Let's not overanalyze as well. But for now, yeah, you're not grabbing onto any threads here.
Humphries was fantastic.
Okay.
I'd be very surprised if Dodd comes and takes his spot back.
I think that's
don't
a long way
that's
from
gonna
happening.
happen.
Yeah.
His kicking game was tremendous. Got a huge boot on him. He put some good hang time on some of those bombs, and it's some really nice sort of 60 metres on the fly, spiral torpedoes and stuff like that. So everyone's looking for someone like that.
Yeah.
He's a big boy, got pretty wide shoulders and very strong in defence from what I saw. So obviously being a hooker for a few years probably helps that. But yeah, his defence was tremendous, and I thought he outshone Walker. I've heard some things about Walker that playing a good game in this one. I disagree with that, to be honest. But
Fair commentary.
he was decent, but definitely not good.
I'll let you dole out the points here.
I'd care Kulamattangi for the 3.
You didn't mention him. Why?
No, I did. Said
Okay.
he was very good in attack, busted some
sorry.
tackles, created quick play the balls, and got through his work. I had Humphries for the 2. I thought he was instrumental in getting him around the field with his kicking game. And then I had Arrow with the 1. He was just as good as Kulamattangi, really. These 3 could have been in any position in that 1, 2, 3, but Arrow, Arrow, a couple of times he got busted and was left on the ground, and he just keeps getting up, keeps putting himself back into that.
He was, and
line.
full credit to him, he was doing that last year with both his arms hanging off his body, so I hope he gets a full season out again and he'll show exactly what he's worth to them and Queensland. So
if he could get his running game back to where it was when he was playing Origin,
yeah,
he'd be right.
Suddenly they're back in with that back row, yeah. Anything else? 28-20, the Bulldogs and the Dragons clash Saturday afternoon in I think it was an interesting definitely a physical game, emotional game if nothing else.
They got stuck into each other quite a few times there,
which is unlikely to happen with some of the characters on this field, I know. But what little tidbits have you got for us, Barn, and what have you made of this?
Oh, yeah, it was it was back and forth. The Dragons never really looked like being the winners, even though they probably started a little bit better than the Bulldogs. We had 4 tries to 5. Tui Politutu with Tui Politutu with a double, and Tupanua with a double for the Dogs. 4 out of 5 conversions for the Bulldogs. 2 out of 4
hat-trick, sorry,
for
Tuipulotu.
the Dragons.
Yeah.
Oh yes, hat-trick.
Because you did his little celebration when it down by 20.
Yeah, throwing cash around. Obviously, wants an upgrade to the contract.
Yeah.
Not sure it's coming.
Something to be said there.
But we'll see. A lot of back and forth. But as I said, I didn't really look like the Dragons were ever going to take the lead and run away with the game. The Dogs seemed like they were in pretty good control for a big part of it, and that came a lot off the back rowers, I thought. Back rowers for the Bulldogs were tremendous.
Took me a while to recognise Villy again with his,
the Lamington
with his natural
hairdo.
hair, whatever that is.
That's it. Looked like a Lamington.
It definitely wasn't blonde.
But
He must have left his dye at Pappy's house.
Killed it. Like, he could have had a bit more impact with his running game, but what he did do was quality, and set up 2 tries down that left edge. Was always looked like a threat every time they got the ball, and they used him as a decoy a lot as well, which obviously helps with the threat down there as well. Dragons forward pack was good enough. Poor old Ryan Couchman, first ACL for the year, I'm pretty sure. Gone.
Yeah, it is.
I think he was on the field for a minute, and then he's gone. His brother had a fantastic game, made 47 tackles and was in everything, worked his backside out. So he'd be one that, if you're looking for someone in Supercoach, I'd be looking at. Looks like he's definitely got a massively high work rate.
His minutes are probably about to go up as well, so.
You would think so, yeah. Wasn't a hell of a lot of super impressive performances in this one. I thought Val was very good for the Dragons, but they had the likes of, Luciano could play a hell of a lot better. Sua could play a whole heap better in
Didn't
the
yeah,
middle
that
of the
whole back
field.
row didn't. They got. I thought they got a little bit bashed more. I think that forward pack.
Jack DeBellum was okay, but he's normally gets through a bit more than what he got through in this game. Young Hamish Stewart came on, had a pretty good game after Couchman obviously did his knee. Little was the big one
tremendous.
for me. He added so much spark out of that dummy half when he came on and just really carved open the Dogs a couple of times in the middle of the field. And that little bit of extra acceleration and pace that Cookie's lost these days, Little was able to sort of, instead of just sort of half pushing through the gap, he was able to come out the other side and really open them up in the middle of the field.
I wonder if we get a stage where they try him at lock or something.
Yeah, maybe.
Or Cook at lock. Or Cook at centre.
Rotate
one of those
between
things.
them, but don't put Cook at centre. Fucking Jesus Christ. We saw how that works. But, he really opened up this game at the back end, and it was really probably the only reason that they looked like being a chance. Gutho chimed in and was good enough, but never really looked like a threat in attack. Threw a couple of nice balls, which created a little bit down the edges.
He still set up. He did his usual Gutho plays where he's going to. I don't think probably the centres responded as necessary as well as they may have in some awkward situations at times. Probably almost expect a bit more from Sully in this game, to be honest.
That's where the Dogs seem to really thrive, in those corners of the field where they're able to get so much of that cover defence, as I mentioned. There was a lot of first up missed tackles again from the Bulldogs where other teams will open them up, but the Dragons couldn't really, cash in on it. And when they get down into those corners with the centres and wingers, they've just got 3 and 4 guys covering across, and they're able to sort of shut that down. But
probably as good as anyone bar Penrith. I'm just thinking about this. You're right, because they just shut things down in the corner. Whereas, as a Tigers fan, you get in that corner and you go, who's gonna
fall off a tackle here.
Fall off and score here. But I agree with that. It's a good shout. Something I'll keep an eye on this week.
They just defend that little bit different than everyone else. I mentioned it last week in the preview and in the pre-season review. And while they do sort of get bumped off a bit in the middle of the field, there's always somebody. There's always somebody folding back across to help out. So.
Absolutely. And, you mentioned kick out. Preston had his usual Preston game as well. I thought, what do you make of their halves?
They couldn't really create opportunities again.
It was all Connor Tracy,
Yep.
who was fantastic. I wish I had stuck to my guns and put him into my CT dubs.
They seem to have more in that train track area, that 15 metres in from the sideline on both sides of the field is where the Dogs seem to create more opportunities and damage than anywhere else. And then, once they got through the line there, they were able to promote a bit wider for the tries to come. But they really targeted the halves in defence. They gave Ilias and Flanagan no respite whatsoever. Just ran Satilli and Kikau at him and Max King, and they just constantly turned him over in defence.
What about Satilli? He was out of favour last year at the Trooks. Before that, to get back 2020, end of 2022-ish even.
Yep.
He was just phenomenal at times for the Roosters. If he's back, and I think he had ACL, was it ACL shoulder? It was one of them. He missed a lot of time.
Did.
And then wasn't really used last year. Fantastic. And
that hard line that he runs when he gets it right and the timing's on, he's just so hard to stop.
6'4" bloke coming at you, built like that.
Million miles an hour.
That still has a step. And
Good
still
leg
has
speed.
It's a very scary prospect.
Caused them no end of
which
problems.
makes me happy seeing him back at his best.
He had 19 runs, 170 odd metres, it just tore him up. And the Dragons could not cope with it.
Does he end up at lock or something, or you reckon they just go with Kurt Mann slowly, or?
Yeah, I dare say if anyone's going to go there, it'll be Preston. I think
Curran's back this week too.
I think he just offers a bit more on that edge than he's going to be in a battering ram in the middle of the field.
And they
with
pick
that
up.
footwork
They actually pick up Curran, probably playing prop really.
Yep, prop and
through the middle, and give and King Hughes.
Probably swap between
Curran.
Preston and Curran, playing middle and 13, and I'd be setting Sturtilly up on that edge.
Just line up against some of these centres.
And
line him
halves,
up against Fatape or Purdue or any of these blokes. And let him run riot.
Yeah.
Very, very astute coaching. Dragons, like we were sort of suggesting dogs are on for your 4s and 5s of the world. What does that, 4th and 5th place, I should say, where does that put Dragons? Competitive?
Yeah. Sniffing around
Good
that
enough?
8 for sure.
Yeah. If they all are, they all must be.
They can't fall away as badly as they did in the middle of the game. Like the sort of 10, 15 minutes either side of half time, they were diabolical. They were just getting run over on the back foot constantly. I don't know who's going to kick them out of trouble when they're in trouble, because it didn't happen again this week.
Can't give you an answer. Val. Let Val punt.
Might have to.
Val kick it.
Because he can kick it 50, 60 metres.
He's got a 60
drop
metre
kick the
beating.
fucking thing. You
Drop
drop kick it 60
you can kick it
metres.
60. Just let him boot it. Because you're right, and this was that was our exact concern.
It was like the Warriors against the Raiders. They just were getting rolled in the middle of the field and could not get off the back foot for half an hour, 40 minutes, and the game's gone.
Yeah. It is so hard, especially like the worst of the weekend for that was Parra, but we'll get there.
That's probably my takeaway for the whole weekend, to be honest. Like, you saw how important a forward pack is.
Yeah, and or a boot.
A forward pack and a kicking game is in this game these days. Because if your forwards are going backwards and can't change that momentum for 20 minutes, half an hour, you may as well just fucking walk off the field, because you're not getting...
Yeah, it's funny you mention that, because that's where the Tigers missed their shot, because they had that against Newcastle. Newcastle were not doing that at all, but Tigers never converted that. Realistically, it should have been 12 or 18 at half time.
The thing that Newcastle were able to get away with was, as you mentioned, their centres making big meters out on those edges, and while it might not have led to tries, they were making big meters downfield and getting themselves out of trouble that way with early shifts and constant pushing out in the edges. But yeah, this Dragons side really needs to find, as I said, to get Val to kick it, but they need to notice that they're getting rolled quicker
and just
change the momentum.
Yeah.
Because they look real stale for about half an hour and getting bashed up in the middle of the field.
Who's getting the points from this one?
Tilly.
Two
tries, 3 points for Tilly. 2 tries, 170 odd metres. Was the biggest forward, biggest contributing forward in the game.
My man at 2, Connor.
Yep, I had Connor, and then I had Kickow for the 1, and honourable mentions to Val and Toby Couchman. But
yeah, I'd be fine with that. Let's roll with that, and then we get to. Well, I've used the term glorious carnage before, but this was the next 2 games were some glorious carnage from players that make me happy watching. One of whom is as old as me. Yeah, I know.
Wow.
But it was, we'll start off 42-12. Seagulls over the Cowboys. Game I had frothed up over and suggested would be a cracker, and I was wrong.
Cowboys didn't want to play their part.
They had no interest in being any part of this game, being physical.
This was probably the biggest one that you saw, as you mentioned. Just half the team didn't want to be involved in contact. No. Like they wanted to play tag.
And I wonder how much of that is all of pre-season now being restricted, or this, like, you can have so many contacts thing, or whatever it is, or whether surely they can't be so far up their own arse that.
But that's been one of their biggest strengths in the last couple of years.
Yeah, well, this is, Peyton came out, I think Peyton's quote after the game was something like they need to look at what they learned. It was something like they need to look at what they learned in the off-season, or something. Look at themselves because of what they put in or something. But what's he been in now, 4 years, and it's like he either has them massively jacked up and gas out, not jacked up but fly home, and last year they had the inverse curve, started hot, fell off, came back. What is this one now? Like, is it just
hopefully for Cowboys fans, it's a month of slow start, and then they just continue to progress throughout the year. But they're going to take some time to find their way with the new halves combination, obviously, which is a big part of their attacking game, because their attacking game looked just almost as bad as their defensive at times. But as I said, they were playing Oztag for big parts of this game. They're stepping to the side and slapping blokes on the arse as they ran past them. I got your tag, come back here. No, mate, it's not how it works. But Manly was so fired up.
If you're ever going to find you mentioned if you combined Gray's enthusiasm with Latrell's body. Turns out Manly have one of those. Yeah. And he felt like he had blood in the water, and he was like, I'm having this ball tonight, lads.
He's getting a bit tight towards the end of the game, but just that one-up, hit up. Like, he stands 3 metres to the side of the dummy half, short pass, and I'm taking it, and I'm running straight at the half, or I'm running straight at the centre. I'm going to put a bit of footwork on and go. I'm coming out the other side, and they just don't. They can't get hold of him. They can't stop him. And even if they do get hold of him, he still manages to get a pass away to somebody else in a better position. Like, that's probably one of his biggest traits. Is you very rarely see him make a huge mistake. Like, if he tries to promote a ball, it's generally put to somebody else who's in a better position than what he's in. But his footwork and the leg speed out of Manly for the first half an hour of this game was just undeniable. They were just so fast across the ground, and the Cowboys could not cope with it at all.
Yeah, and you can name all of them. You can go left to right and name the whole lot.
Even the forward packs, a lot of the forwards were steaming onto the ball. Like, when Sipley came on after half an hour or whatever it was, he was flying onto the thing.
Yeah,
they were getting out of dummy half and causing all sorts of issues.
Well, is there any positives for old mate, poor old Jackson Purdue? Actually, made me laugh. Didn't make me laugh because I bought him and played him this week in Supercoach.
Correct.
On the back of Melbourne last week, and sat a few others that got 80s and 90s on the bench. But footwork centre, strong boy, 19 years old. They've turned up, and Daly's Cherry Evans just gone, have you met Halomi Olakuatu? You're about to, for the next 80 minutes, get to know his name. And it was just an absolute carnage after that. From the eighth, whenever the first try was.
Punched out 100 in the Supercoach or whatever it was.
He just ran at him all night and would be giving him nightmares.
And Dearden was trying to help him out as much as he could. Yeah. He was trying to make as many tackles as he could, but they aimed at him as well. Fuck the amount of pressure they put on Dearden in defence to just absolutely gas him, and he's got to leave him with nothing in attack.
Which it makes all the sense in the world if you really strip back as a coach. You go, well, okay, there's your two 19-year-olds. Dearden's the man that's going to help him out of this. Fuck him. Let's give it to him as well.
Yeah.
What else do we say?
And who else was out there? Nanai, he had one of the worst games.
He got dropped. I've noticed. We'll get to the preview, but he shan't be playing first grade this week. Drinkwater did as much as Drinkwater can do under all circumstances, but he picked up a try. A bit flattered by picking up a try in the last couple of minutes, and as was Braden Burns. But you just go, there has to be massive back to the drawing board this week.
Just defensively, I don't know what their defensive structure was. It was. They weren't getting off the line. They weren't putting pressure on them when they were coming up. I know, as I said, they couldn't handle the leg speed of Manly, but half the time it didn't look like they gave a shit, especially in defence. And then they didn't have the ball for about half an hour because Manly were just scoring try after try. And then what do you do with it once you get it after just getting run over the top of for half an hour?
Well, let's go to Manly.
Bateman worked hard. He was probably one of the biggest pluses for them. He didn't do anything outstanding. He did a fair bit of work. Was it to the 40-odd tackles and however many hit-ups that he made? But there wasn't many that went with him in that forward pack. McIntyre would probably be the only other mention. Robson was down, really down on what you've seen out of him.
Yeah, well, he's another one. You watch as soon as Cheese goes to South, he'll be at Chooks. This whole merry-go-round's going to start very quickly, probably quicker than we think.
Yep. The wingers tried to help out. Burns did a pretty good job. Tuolangi made some runs, but never really impactful, just sort of hit-ups that the forwards didn't want to take because, as you said, they weren't hugely interested in any contact. Their bench was deplorable, added very little. Probably made things worse when they came on the field, to be honest. Cotter was down on his usual output as well. Normally in that sort of situation, you see him fold someone in half, and they might get a lift in energy or something like that. But his defence wasn't hitting anywhere as hard as he normally does.
They stayed coming into this game. They stayed in Melbourne an extra week after the trial match because they blamed the Heat last year for this sort of thing.
Okay. Yep.
But in hindsight, and hindsight's always much clearer, do you reckon that there must have been a sniff of this going into it? Because, I don't know, have they had a bad pre-season?
Quite possibly.
Whatever that means. Can you?
They didn't look overly interested, so that's not a great sign for round one.
So we can say we don't want, because last year they blamed the Heat and Townsville for their pre-season, so they had a week in Melbourne instead, and have come out and produced this performance. I'll tell you what, I'll say it now. Todd Payton might be the first to go this year.
Yeah.
I reckon he might be the
This
first.
is still
to go.
going on in 6 or 8 weeks from now.
He's in a world of trouble because he's had the spectres looming at times over his time up there, and he's avoided it. But man,
They say defence is attitude, and their attitude was piss poor in this game.
yeah,
So,
it's just weird. And even last year, it's just they were good enough to score 38, 40 points in attack a lot of those games.
but Val did a lot of stuff
and-
on his own, and then obviously combined with Drinkwater and Din, that was sort of their focal point.
They get Tamalolo back this week apparently, so that's
Okay,
something.
whatever that is. He's been, hot and cold as well. Like, I know when
Yeah.
he's good, but there's been a lot of times he hasn't been good in recent times as well. So
Manly, very good. A very, very good
Fantastic.
performance from as close to a top 4 performance as you want to see. There's an old bloke in the 7 that went all right.
how does he still keep putting in these? It's 15 seasons now.
Yeah.
Like, I know he played in a dinner suit in this one, didn't really have to get involved in too much tough stuff, but
Yeah.
they still targeted him a bit in defence, and he very rarely misses his task in defence. And the way he's able to kick the ball around and just set up his outside man helps, obviously, having one of the best fullbacks in your arsenal to chime into that back line. But the way he gets his forwards to whatever position he wants on the field, and he's got the play set up, and obviously it takes other people to help run that play, but he's the shot caller.
Just
He's the
me.
one that's organising and everything. So
And what they have at their sleeve is those games they do get dominated. As we've said, he's the best back foot halfback in the game,
yep,
if not top 2 with Mitch Moses, if we're going to say from a meterage point of view. But they've got every weapon you want, and they've got more pace. You throw that more pace than most of the sides.
Yeah, their back
you
five's
could argue. I
lightning.
wouldn't mind seeing their forward pack get bashed a bit before I declare anything seriously stupid. But apart from that, you love teams where if you make half a break, that you're scoring tries. And you got Saab, you got Lee, Hopperwhite had the Lomax style try assist.
did Takiao get injured?
I think so. Yeah, he's out
Noticed
this
he
week.
only played 20 odd minutes.
I was
which is
actually going to mention
unusual. Because I thought he was pretty
I
good
think
in
he's
that
out this
stint
week.
that he was
Yeah,
on.
does more of that, but
Well, the forwards didn't have to do too much. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, it was more the guys they were able to jump on the back. Like Bullymore scored a try and got involved in a couple of line breaks. As I mentioned, Sipley I thought was tremendous in the 40 minutes that he played.
Yeah.
He's coming the way he bashed into the line.
we know with him and Paseka, we want to see it.
Paseka was good.
Yeah, but you want to see it. You 3 weeks in a row rather than 1 out of 4.
Yeah, 100%. And you want another pack charging at them and hitting them in defence when they're running into the line, because that didn't happen in this game. But their outside backs looked tremendous, led by Tommy and DCE. It's pretty much the show.
Absolutely. Top 4's beckoning if they get everything right this year.
100%.
Easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing 3 for Tommy, 2 for DCE,
Yep.
1 for Halomi, I suppose.
Yeah, Olakwata, 100%.
Yeah.
You could
And
probably even argue.
you could
him
argue
and
for 2 there,
but
yeah.
yeah.
Who cares?
Get the one.
And then we wrapped up Sunday afternoon, 56-18. The Storm did a similar job on the Parramatta Eels, who, after all their Jason Rolls pre-season and this and that and the changes and seeing the ushering the old guard out, well, they got towed, and they were. I thought that first half was the worst performance from a team. Well, we've seen this year at least, but
You just
possibly.
replay the same thing that I just said in that last game
They
and just
turned up
change
here
the
and
names
it's
around.
like they were shocked. Yeah, well, let's not reiterate it, but they were shocked that, yes, oh shit, there's a very good football team running very fast at us. What do we do now?
Yep. And their inside defence. Whenever Melbourne changed the angle, apart from just running that sort of sweep play to the edges, which they only covered that half the time as well. But as soon as they changed the angle and started cutting back in on different angles or providing opportunities where the defence had to make a decision, whereas you got an in-out runner and a cross or something like that, they just their heads exploded and they didn't know what to do. And there was big parts of the same stuff last year. Like why they ran second last, didn't they? Like it was a big part of the reason that they ran second last year. They're big part of their defensive structure is probably the worst in the competition.
Well, I don't understand how they clean out everyone and have the same setup. And it's been that structure. It's been that umbrella but not umbrella structure for 5 years. So whether they just default to fucking factory mode,
it's people. It's either people rushing out of the line, making spur of the moment decisions and just completely fucking the defensive line, or guys sitting on their heels and not wanting to make a decision and just waiting and fucking you wait on Pappenhausen or Munster or some Tommy Turbo, it's too late. They're gone. Yeah. They've already changed angles and they've got someone coming with them and they're under the post. So they really need. I don't know what it is. I don't know if there's fractures between the players, whether they're off the coach. Or he's only just started there, so maybe it's somebody else in that coaching structure that they're not absolutely convinced by. But they need to work together.
Yeah,
especially in defence, and the blokes standing next to each other don't seem to know what they're doing.
No,
what the other guy's doing. So
I can't explain it. Like I said, you can explain it if a few months into a comp where you see a team's going, but in round one, for it to be like this under a new structure, a new system, it's
there's
bizarre.
plays out of Melbourne produced some plays that would have carved open a lot of defences.
Oh yeah.
But there was a lot of plays that should have been shut down.
Yeah. They just so happened to run into Ryan Pappenhausen, which brought me so much joy.
Munster was back near the top of his game.
You can't call it an ambush with Melbourne, but it was a round one Melbourne, and they were all ready to go.
Harry wasn't really pushing into the line, but he was taking blokes with him and putting them through the line. Like it was, they just got beaten in every position on the field.
Yeah,
There's one upside for Parramatta. It was the Yongi. Yongi looked like a very good kid and someone that's going to come through.
Very hard to get into that game.
He needs other people to do it for him.
We've had a half-back and now potentially in 6 weeks with a disinterested.
And a forward pack that's getting rolled.
Yeah, that forward pack's abysmal, man. Like, I don't know. It's great that Jack Williams put on size. I think he went off the field injured. But he's exposed. He's played 121st grade. Like, you know who Jack Williams is.
He's better in the middle because he used to get caught out quite a bit on the edges trying to defend out there.
Yeah.
He will defend better in the middle for them. But
Borlo's on the downslide of the curve. Joffa, same. Like, very good footballers, but they're...
Tuolangi got made
here?
To look ordinary. Yeah. They targeted him big time, and he does not move laterally at all.
No. But he's found his way out of 2 clubs in the last 4 years, so...
Yep.
Yeah, it's... We can sit and talk for another 10 minutes about how all the great things about Melbourne, but, like, they were just Melbourne, and they did Melbourne very, very, very well.
Yep.
But like I said, there was much joy to my heart of Pappy with his... now, unfortunately, my son's now asked if he can get his hair bleached to go with his mullet, thanks to that man. But for what he's been to for 2.5 years, it was tremendous.
The centres were okay. They did a bit of work, but...
Howarth was good, but like you're wrapping...
No, I mean Parramatta. Penasini was okay. Lomax tried to get involved, but...
Yeah.
He was really only option was the bomb that he jumped for a few times.
Yeah.
And sort of got involved. But their wingers didn't help their forwards either. There was no wingers chiming in to take it up. So out of dummy half.
And there's no size in that back line. Like I know Sevo wasn't.
Penasini's not small, but
wasn't a big meter eater, but it had something. Now who's going to drag them 250 meters a game?
Nobody.
Not a single. And Gutho. No. Gutho used to do that as well. And poor Yongi's going to be cooked before we get to round 12.
They're putting even more pressure on a forward pack that just can't perform.
No,
hasn't performed for a while.
It's very concerning, actually, the more I think about this for them. But that said, they'll beat Penrith. They'll beat Tigers this week. So
Guymer was okay off the bench. Williams probably should be taken off that edge and put back into the middle. He looked better in the middle in the trials than what he did on the edge in this game. But there's so many questions for Parramatta.
Yeah.
We don't really need to touch on Melbourne, do we? They just had a training
They were
run.
ready to go. They were great.
There was a couple of them that were very good. You mentioned Howarth. He had a fantastic game out there. Was involved in a lot of stuff when they were going through the motions.
Pretty good game in terms of overall, and it is a Xavier Coates because there's games he doesn't get involved a lot, and he was involved a lot.
Yes.
Taking outside the tries, he was in and around that, and just tick across the field. You just tick everyone from top to finish, and you move on.
We had two very good
So
halves
they
that played good.
the rightful favourites for minor premierships, and we just move on.
Katoa was massive.
Incredible, yeah.
What about that 50-metre run where he scores? He's just punching blokes, pushing blokes off left, right and centre, takes it 50 metres and scores a try.
Yeah, absolutely. 3 to Pappy.
Yep.
2 to Katoa.
Munster.
And Munster. Let's go with that. Now we get the part of the game which I've not thought about, but we do our salutes and as such. Have you got...
I haven't thought about it.
No, that's right, but let's do it off the top of your head. Pot plant, I'm going to go with... Gosh, actually, have you got one?
Yeah, well, I just mentioned him, Kelma Tuolangi from Parramatta.
That's a good
shout.
shout.
He was extremely ordinary.
Yeah, it was awful. And my pot plant will be... let's go with Jackson Purdue. Bless him, but at least Kelvin might have kicked his toe on the other one. Actually, it's more Parramatta. Parramatta deserve him, and he does.
Yeah, the defence on Sunday.
do we do slaps anymore? I haven't thought about slaps. I don't really have. There's nothing really bad.
Nothing really stood out.
No. We might save that one, but usually we have a slap. And salute, you got one?
Oh, I'm guessing yours is going to be Pappy.
There's the two blokes
Tom
that bring me
Pappy,
joy.
isn't it? So
I'll go a little bit of DCA
with,
just for my own amusement.
Actually, I'll go with Hamoli Olagawatu.
That's fair
I
enough.
thought he was brilliant, and the way that he's just... he's trimmed down but gotten bigger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like his midsection's gotten smaller, but his shoulders seem to have gotten bigger.
Yeah.
So he was just toying with blokes at different times.
It's such an interesting thing when you watch so much footy, the players that become your favourites. And obviously, it probably is Ryan Papenhuyzen now. He's probably reached Brett Mullins for 8-year-old me standard now, just because it's fun to watch. But DCE, I just love watching DCE play from what he brings to a team, and because everyone else
hates him.
Has
3/4 of the comp hate
him. For what for? Fuck, he's a good footballer. A little bit of there's a little bit creepy into that Brisbane team as well with Adam Reynolds and that, but it's like watching good football.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, let's salute Pappy and Turbo. Get our salutes for the week. That has been our review show. I think we'll split it. We'll come back and do a preview in a few minutes.
Sure.
But thank you, Barn.
Thank you, mate.
Get through it okay?
Very
no
good.
injuries? Feeling good?
Not that I know of.
Ready for the quick backup next week?
Busted shoulder for the last few days, but that had nothing to do with this podcast.
Okay.
I don't know. I think I just slept weird.
My knee was fucked last week.
Actually,
inexplicably, I could not walk.
Sunday morning, I had a half sort of slip coming down the stairs carrying the baby and threw everything into, holding him on my chest, and I think I might have tore something in my shoulder.
No, my knee was rooted for a few days.
I didn't go down, which was very good, because it could have been disastrous.
As my patella. I thought I was gone, but it's come good. So.
Yeah, it could move me arm for 2 days, but
no one else
nothing to do with the podcast.
Thanks, guys. Leave your comments below. Let us know your DC love on YouTube and Spotify, obviously, and we'll be doing a preview after this. Bye.